Craig's going to be with us a couple more days, then he's going to have to leave us, but we do appreciate him coming and helping our symposium out. Ladies and gentlemen, could you give a warm welcome for Mr. Craig Roberts.
For those of you that don't know me or haven't read any of my books, I've been a police officer for 25 years. In 1965 and 1966, I served in the 1st Marine Battalion Landing Team to see combat in the Republic of South Vietnam. Halfway through my tour as an automatic rifleman, and after getting 2 Purple Hearts and ending up in the hospital for wounds received in action, I was selected to go to the first sniper school that we put on, and ended up in early 1966 being assigned or attached to the 1st Marine Division as a Marine sniper. I was one of the first Marine snipers in the Republic of South Vietnam. When I left my operational area, which is south and west of Da Nang, I was replaced by 1 Sergeant Carlos Norman Hathcock III. Now, Sergeant Hathcock later became known as the most famous Marine Corps sniper in the history of this country, with 93 confirmed kills and over 350 actual kills. I know your question is, okay, how many did you get, Roberts? I have 18 confirmed kills and 35 probables. And probably 250, I scared the hell out of them. So, Hathcock and I worked the same operational area. We're friends. I wrote a book that he is featured in called One Shot, One Kill, America's Combat Snipers. And most of the books I've written as a writer, I've done 8 or 9 books now, and most of the books I've written as a writer have to do with military history, firearms, or police work, the areas of my expertise. One particular book that came out last January does not deal necessarily in any of those specific areas, but it does draw from that expertise. So I'll tell you what happened to me. In I think it was around 87, I went to a law enforcement convention in Dallas, Texas. Actually, it was in Arlington. I am still on the police department in Tulsa. I fly helicopters now. I've been doing that for about 12 years. And it was the Airborne Law Enforcement Association convention down there, which I go down to hang out with the other pilots, have a good time, listen to a few of the speakers, and play hooky as much as possible, like everybody else when you go to a convention. And I had a rental car an afternoon off before we were going to have a banquet, and I wanted something to do, and I ended up in Dealey Plaza. I didn't go over there because I had any following for John F. Kennedy. I've never read anything on the assassination other than what the government told me. Lee Harvey Oswald, the lone nut with a gun, from his perch in the Texas School Book Depository, fired 3 shots, wounding everybody in West Texas, killing Kennedy, and a whole bunch of other things like that in this story. Along comes Jack Ruby, kills him, dies of cancer, case closed. Okay, fine, neat, clean, cut and dried, who cares? And I'm going to tell you, I grew up, I'm from South Central Los Angeles originally. I was born in Southern California, but I grew up in my older years, junior high and high school in Oklahoma. And in the 22nd of November, 1963, I was a senior in Memorial High School in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in drafting class when they announced over the PA system that Kennedy got killed. And I'm going to tell you something, half the class stood up and cheered. Kennedy was liked in Oklahoma and in Texas in those days about like Clinton is liked in those places today. So, and that's, I'm not making this up. This is true. So it wasn't a big thing in 1987 when I'm down there looking at this until something happened. Now you got to remember what my background was. I was a shooter for the government. I was fairly good at my job. I knew a lot about it. I knew what to do and what not to do. Later on I worked in a SWAT team on the police department, working in the same area. I'd written a book about sniping just previous to that. And I walked up finally in the Dallas County Record, or the Texas School Book Depository, and I saw the Lee Harvey Oswald did it all by himself memorial. That's what I call it. I looked at all the exhibits, I read everything, and I walked over to the 6th floor window, or actually you could only get to the one next to it because they've got it, glassed off for those of you that have been there. I took one look out the window and I knew immediately that it didn't happen. Now that's the first thought. It didn't happen because I couldn't do it. That meant somebody lied to me. That same somebody that lied to me sent me to Vietnam, got 54,000 of my brothers killed over there, and probably somewhere in the vicinity of 500,000 wounded. Wounded me 3 times, almost cost me my right leg. I still sometimes click off a metal detector at an airport for shrapnel. And I wasn't real happy about that. That same government told me a lie that they'd let me live all that time. I'd never read the Kennedy Assassination book. But I was a writer in those days, and I was working on a couple of other books, and it was the 25th anniversary, I think it was, of the Kennedy assassination. And what I had done is, being a writer and a historian and having VCRs, I was plugging those tapes in, recording things as they come across that I thought I could use for future reference. Well, that particular year, I had recorded everything that they had broadcast on the Kennedy assassination, tape after tape after tape. I haven't watched it. I just had it running over there because I can't write unless there's some noise in the room. I went home and I pulled some of those tapes out, and for the first time I really took a hard look at the Zapruder film. Because I was onto something now. I was a police officer who had to work a homicide. It wasn't something up on an ivory tower. It wasn't something grand and special. It wasn't the golden ring or the golden fleece. It was a simple homicide, plain and simple. Let's find out what happened here. Let's look at the evidence. Let's look at the witness testimonies. Let's see what we can come up with. I looked at the Zapruder film, folks, and let me tell you what I saw. Now remember my background. I saw, and you got to remember, when Zapruder took this footage, there was no way in 1963 that they would realize that every home in America would have a VCR where you could fast forward, back up, freeze frame, stop play, and examine it piece by piece. Well, I did that. I wore out like 3 remote controls looking at this thing, making sure that what I was seeing was what I was seeing, because I'm going to tell you what I saw. I saw a man that was shot from the right front by a high-powered rifle. He was shot by a frangible bullet. Now, what's a frangible bullet? Well, some people say, well, it's an exploding bullet. Okay, what's an exploding bullet? Well, it's one that explodes. How do you do that? Well, it's a dum-dum bullet. Well, then you get all this runaround. No one really seems to know what a frangible bullet is. Frangible bullet is one that fragments, okay? It could be anything. It could be a hollow point with weak walls. It could be a certain type of soft nose, depending on what the core is filled with. But let me tell you what I saw in that film. I saw a bullet that we knew how to make in Vietnam. 2 years after that film was taken, it was ancient history. We already knew how to do it. We didn't do it. Number one, we didn't have the right stuff, and number two, there was no reason to. We weren't out there trying to make bullets explode. We were out there to try to eliminate the number of the bad guys that were around us, and if we wounded them, that was as good as a kill. We didn't care. A frangible bullet is this. Now, you want to know how come all the pink mist is in the front of the head? It's supposed to be the other way, right? Any doctor will tell you, little hole in back, or in front, big hole in back, means the bullet went this way. Is that true? No. It is true on most cases, but it is not always 100% true, because I can make a bullet right now, and I can take that thing, and I can take it out here, and I can put a target up that's circular and it's hard, and I can make one hole bigger than the other by making the bullet come apart of impact and creating a shockwave impact, not one that builds up and goes through and comes out the other side. Now, how do we do this? We take a 30-06 or whatever, large caliber rifle round, hollow point. We drill it out bigger and make the cavity bigger, which narrows the thickness of the walls. We fill it with mercury. Then we cap it off with either paraffin or liquid solder or something to hold it in. Now, when we fire that round, it's held intact until it reaches the object. And here's what happens. When it reaches the object, it looks like this. When it reaches the object, it collapses this direction like a piston, shoving the mercury forward, the walls erupting this direction. And what do you see in the Zapruder film? You see stuff going up and down and out to the sides. Hardly anything went on Connolly. Almost everything went to the rear, because that's what came out the other end. Now, I've heard these doctors who are supposed to be expert witnesses, and I love to get a doctor on the witness stand who claims to be an expert witness in this area. I don't care how many bodies he's dissected, because he sees something long after the fact. As far as I'm concerned, he's not an expert witness unless he shot people in the head and killed them. And I haven't found a doctor yet that's done that. Most of them say a cold, stiff body later on. If this man is shot in the head and it explodes here, and stuff comes out over here and goes on a motorcycle right around the trunk of the car, and his head goes that direction, it's pretty conclusive. Probably the shot came from this way and went that way, because you can't take a pumpkin, set it on a fence post, hit it with a baseball bat, and expect it to go back into the direction of the bat. Remember, the reaction has an opposite reaction going the opposite way. Simple matter of physics. Well, that thing's been argued back and forth for 100 years. But I'm going to tell you this, I've never in my life shot anyone in the head or anyplace else and saw this pressure build up until it erupts and the head stays stationary and this jet effect comes out, like Posner says, throwing the head to the rear. That ain't going to happen, folks. Now, if Mr. Posner wants to try that sometime and prove it otherwise, I would sure like to see it. But I'm going to tell you right now, I have seen it. I've seen it over and over. My friends have seen it. And I called Gunny Halfcock, retired from the Marine Corps now, and I said, Gunny, have you seen this Zapruder film? He said, yeah. He chuckled. I said, what do you know about the Kennedy assassination? He said, well, what do you want to know? I said, well, what do you know about it? He said, well, I don't know very much, but I do know that we tried to reenact at the headquarters of Marine Corps at Quantico what happened in Dealey Plaza, and we couldn't do it. Neither him nor his instructors in that time frame could do what happened in Dealey Plaza. And if they can't do it, and I can't do it, Lee Harvey Oswald, who barely qualified marksman, with one of these, but fine Italian assault rifles, never fired, only surrendered 3 times, didn't do it. But I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to give you some other evidence today. I'm going to let you be the jury. I'm going to talk a little bit about the ballistics of Dealey Plaza. I'm going to talk a little bit about the mechanical workings of this weapon, and I'm going to tell you what wasn't in Dealey Plaza that day. But did show up later on in the Warren report. And some of you may have heard some of this before since I've written about it. The book's been out almost a year. Some of you may not have. But first, what I want to do is I want to put you at the 6th floor window with a 6.5 Carcano on that day and make it fully functional. We're going to make sure it works. Okay? And basically, looking at it through the eyes of a sniper. First thing I want to tell you right now, the CIA and the FBI didn't know anything about how to be a sniper in those days. They thought that being a sniper was you practice with a high-power rifle on the rifle range, and when you were a good shot, you could go out and do it. Provided you still have the ability to look somebody in the eyes, watch their face, knowing that you're going to end their life, and squeeze the trigger, sending a 172 grain bullet at 2,800 feet per second at 50,000 pounds per square inch, extinguishing their life forever in your mind and being able to still do it. Okay, fine. But let's look through this with the eyes of a sniper, realizing that the CIA, until I went to Vietnam, and I worked with some of these guys, the CIA, the FBI, the Secret Service, none of them understood things like the high-low angle, the low-high angle, all the stuff that occurs when you shoot from a building down to a street 6 or 8 floors up, or from a street up to the roof of a building 6 or 8 floors up or more. They don't understand that because unless you do that and know what happens to that bullet, you're going to miss your target every time, unless you're just a bad shot and have pure luck. And how did we find that out? In the mountains southwest of Da Nang, as we set up to ambush enemy elements walking down trails, and we were up in a high position shooting to a low position. We never did it the other way around. We found out that we were missing our target. So we would go back to the rifle range, which was flat trajectory, and we would shoot from point A to point B, and you have what is known as a trajectory or a parabolic curve that goes up and comes down. Now your rifle sights or your scope looks straight at the target, but by clicking in elevation, you actually raise the barrel of the rifle to where the bullet has this curve and it impacts at point of impact, point of aim, at this point at 500 meters, 750 meters, 1,000 meters, whatever you sight it in for, depending on the bullet weight you're using. Okay. Problem is that's fine on a flat surface rifle range like everybody was used to shooting on. But what happens when you get up to a high place and you shoot to the low? The bullet doesn't drop as much anymore. And over an extended range, all of a sudden, you got a serious problem because you're going to end up shooting high. Now, if he was going to shoot 2 to 3 feet high, how come he hit up here? If he was firing from the rear, he would have actually missed this far, not knowing the high to low angle. But let's forget that part right now. Let's go to this. Very rough, not the scale, but what I'm trying to tell you is what we have here. You're up here, you're the sniper, and you have your target approaching you, makes the turn, comes up the street like this, right straight toward you. The range is decreasing, the deflection, that means the right and the left angle, is not changing, the target is becoming closer, more exposed, and your point of aim, point of impact is getting better by the second. But do you shoot? No. The car makes the turn around a 120-degree turn. You've got him exposed. He's almost to a stop. You've got him nailed right there. But do you shoot? No. The car then continues on down the street. Now he's going through the trees, around the curve, and you're getting ready and getting ready, and finally you decide you're going to take a shot. Of course, the first shot's not heard. That's the throat shot. I don't know. I guess it was a magic bullet that didn't have any sound to it. It was the first one to come out, went around and came in the front. That's another story. Gets down here by the freeway sign, comes out from behind the freeway sign, he's clutching his throat, and we know the other shots until we get to the head shot down here in front of the trooper. We know the sequence of things that happen. The problem is, you didn't shoot when you had the best 3 capability time frames. As he turned toward you, as he came toward you, as he almost stopped underneath you. You waited till he went away around the bend and through the trees to start making your shots. Why? Well, because for you they may have been bad shots, but not for somebody else. It was positioned in another location. Now, what I'm doing is I'm giving you a 6-hour seminar in 30 minutes. So what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about this boat anchor. This rifle. 6.5 millimeter Carcano. This one actually here is a precision hand-built 7.35 Carcano that was issued to Mussolini's elite guard. So I'm not making that up, that's true. I researched this particular one out. It's identical to the 6.5, other than the caliber. It's got a better stock, it's got better metal, the parts fit better, and it doesn't shoot any better, so it doesn't make any difference. But we got a problem with this. Do you remember what was found on the 6th floor? By the way, if you get nervous, ladies, it is empty. Okay? It is empty. We got a problem with this. This particular weapon, unlike the Mauser, Winchester, Remington, Savage, Weatherby, all the rest, is not an internal magazine-fed weapon that has its own spring guide follower and magazine lips as part of the receiver. Now, for those of you that don't know what I just said, what it means is you can't put any bullets in the stupid thing. Okay? Unless you have another integral part that has to go with the mechanism. Like the old M1 rifle, you had to have a clip that fit the rounds. Now, there's been a lot of argument, pro and con, as to whether a clip existed that day. Well, we're going to talk about that in a second. If you will look inside the magazine well of the Carcano, the Mannlicher Carcano, you will see that there is a little spring with a little finger follower right here. There's no way to put a bullet in here and make it stay. It's just going to flip it out. Okay? You have to have something else to hold the bullets. All they do is press up. So what you have is a stripper clip that holds 6 rounds. This is what it looks like. Notice the color. It's brass. It's yellow. It's made in Italy. We have these 6 rounds, but do we take 6 rounds up to shoot the President of the United States that day? No. It's a sporting event, so we only take 4. Okay? Now we got a problem. We got 4 rounds. At least that's what the Warren Commission said. Remember, they said there was 3 empties, 1 live round. That's what was found up there. 1 rifle, 2 chicken bones, lunch sack, top, whatever. Look what happens. This gets kind of loose, kind of hard, and extremely difficult to load. Now, when we load these in the rifle, we have the finger underneath. They set in there just like this. Can everybody see that? And as we work the bolt forward, we strip off around. It goes into the chamber. We lock the bolt down, and we're ready to fire. Now we have, on that particular one, we had a side-mounted scope that was misaligned, the optics were bad, and so on. So what we've got now is when you go to, now let me put you back in the position of a sniper, when you go to aim with a scope, you have to get a certain, what is known as eye relief. That means your eye has to be a certain distance from the scope with no half-moon shadows on any side. Everything has to be perfectly aligned. You have to do this with your adrenaline going 1,000 miles an hour, your heart racing, you're sweating, your pulse is beating in your ears, you're getting ready to shoot not only a live man but the President of the United States. You're probably going to get caught, you're going to go to prison forever, your wife's going to hate you, da-da-da-da-da-da, and all this is going through your mind, and you're taking up the slack of the trigger and you're trying to get lined up, because if you don't do it right, you're going to catch that scope right in the eyeball. That kick is going to put a half-moon mark right over the top of your eye, and it's going to ruin your morale for the next shot. It's going to kind of mess up your rhythm and your timing, so to speak. So you go ahead and take that shot. So what do you do? What did I just do? I had to take it away from my eye, didn't I?
I had to take it away from my eye, I looked the bolt. Now I'm looking at the target, which means my eyes have to focus differently. I reacquire the target. I'm going along like this. I do it again, I do it again, I do it again, I squeeze off, bang, and then, okay? How long was that? That's only 2 shots. 5.6 seconds? Hey, let's give him 10 seconds. Let's go the positive route, and let's give the lone shooter 10 seconds. But let's have him do it by loading these out of his pocket, or off the windowsill, or out of his mouth. I don't care where he kept them because he can't keep them in the rifle because the clip's not there. So we got a little inherent problem there. All right? But I'm going to show you a bigger problem. This gets worse, or it gets better. I'm not sure how you want to call it. Here's a little view of the high to low angle. This is what's supposed to have happened with 3 shots. But we don't even know what the high to low angle was because Oswald, whoever was up in that window, didn't understand the ballistics on that. He probably would have missed. Okay, refresher course on what Dealey Plaza looked like. Don't pay attention to the lines. It's just that you can see the angles that you're dealing with right there. You had a situation where you came in here with a blue Lincoln, went up the 120-degree turn. You know what I'm saying, right? 120-degree turn right over the window, nothing happens. Nothing happens here, nothing happens here, nothing happens here as you wait till it gets clear out of here before you start an engagement in what we call the kill zone. Well, that's not a very good kill zone for you up there, but it's a great kill zone if you're on the grassy knoll. Now, I'm going to show you something. This is taken off. I have the actual photograph on my table. When you come in, I know all you want to buy my book now. I scoffed at it before, but you think maybe the guy's not nuts anymore. When you come in, I got secret things in there that no one else has seen except people who have bought the book. And you have to swear yourself to secrecy. You get the book, you read it, you say, no one, you can't see this. It's all top secret stuff. Say, I'll take it off. I swear? Okay, that's good enough. All right. This photograph I have in there so you can come and see the real photograph. How many rounds had to be fired to make the Warren Commission's report work, including the magic bullet? 3. Minimum of 3 rounds, even though there are 6 shots that we know about. A minimum of 3 rounds has to work, has to be there, correct? Got a photograph from the Dallas Police Archives from somebody that I know in the law enforcement community I thought was real interesting. And this has shown up before, but I don't think anybody's ever pointed it out. This is what was found that day and turned in. Now, if you come by my table a little while, you can examine the photo itself, because this isn't very good. We've got a blanket, we've got the paper sack, we got the pistol, we got 2 slugs from Tippett, we've got 1 live round found in the spout of the rifle, right, in the chamber. But what do we got over here? How many? 2. 2 empty cases. Now we got a problem, don't we? I'm going to compound that problem right now. I also got sent all of the evidence reports of everything that was found in Dallas during the assassination, everything that was turned in, everything that was accounted for. I came on the police department in 1969. We used the same techniques, we did the same things as they did in those days. And believe me, the chain of evidence is paramount in any investigation. The O.J. Simpson thing right now, everything has to do with the chain of evidence. Who had custody? Is the evidence tainted? You know, moving it from point A to B to C to D and so on down the line. And if you can break the chain of evidence, you can discredit the evidence and have it thrown out. Well, there's different types of evidence, but the what we call real evidence, or the physical property type evidence, rifles, bullets, nooses, you know, broken glass, stuff like that, has to have a direct chain where you know where it's been all the time so no one can tamper with it, right? Well, this one came from the Department of Public Safety. I've got one from the Dallas Police Department that shows the same stuff. There's no clip. How many empty cases were found? 2. But this is the one as it appears in the Warren report. Now, remember I told you to remember the color of the clip? Don't look like Perry Mason standing up here. My wife says I look like Robert Redford. Do you agree? 1963, this is a World War II issue. You could get them anywhere in the country. I had several myself. My friend down the street had a 6.5 Carcano. I had an 8mm Mauser. We used to go hunting. He had a whole pocket of these things, 10 cents a piece. For Oswald to get this clip, though, through Klein Sporting Goods, he had to buy 108 rounds of ammunition for $7.95, and with it he got one clip. He didn't buy the ammunition, therefore he didn't get the clip. People have gone out and canvassed. I think the FBI even searched all of the gun shops in Dallas and in New Orleans. They couldn't find where anybody had bought the ammunition or the clip within the 3 months previous to the assassination. Oswald bought the rifle in April under A.J. Heidel, if it was Oswald who bought the rifle anyway. We're not even sure about that. And they didn't even know that Kennedy was going to Texas that early. Guess what shows up in the Warren Commission a year later? 1964. One like this. Problem is, they didn't make this clip until 1964. It's American made, it's steel. The head stamp of the ammunition that was found on the 6th floor didn't check to Mussolini. It checked to an American manufacturer who sold something like 6 million rounds of 6.5 Carcano ammunition to the United States Marine Corps. The Marines didn't have any 6.5 Carcanos, didn't want them, didn't need them, couldn't use them. Actually, it was the CIA who used the Marine Corps purchase order. Those rifles captured at the end of World War II went to Central and South America and were being used to equip foreign armies, foreign governments, or guerrillas, or whoever the CIA was supporting at the time. But the old ammunition was no good. The primers were corrosive primers. It was exploding in the breech. You never knew what this stuff was going to do. One would go bang, the next one would go you didn't know what was going to happen, so they had new ammunition built. How did Lee Harvey Oswald get a hold of 4 rounds of it? Plus, the Warren report later gets hold of one built in the United States on CIA contract. Wasn't there in Dallas, but it was there later on when they realized that there was a mistake. There needs to be a clip here because this rifle won't worry about one. I propose to you that rifle was planted by someone who didn't think ahead or didn't realize that it had to have that clip to fire. I propose to you that we had a serious discrepancy in the number of rounds that were fired from the 6th floor, and by the time they came up with the magic bullet theory, CE 399, that we had to come up with another round on the 6th floor, and hence we've got some photographs and some evidence in doctored documents that there was 3 rounds. But I want to tell you right now, we got a serious problem with the number of rounds. And now I'm going to end this thing, and if you want to ask some questions, I think at the end of the thing later on this evening, we'll have a panel discussion. I'll also be available outside. First shot, he rounds the pin, throat shot. No shot heard, grabs his throat, comes around the freeway sign. Second shot, missed. Third shot, back shot, right? And the miss goes over and hits James Tague in the side of the cheek. Now we got 3 shots right there. Back shot, Kennedy lurches forward. Now this is the one, of course, they're saying it went through his back, came out his throat, hits Connolly, goes through Connolly, runs around Fort Worth, goes to Six Flags, comes back, ends up in his leg, comes out perfect. Okay, well, that sounds plausible to me. Anyway, now, stop and look at the Zapruder film at this point, folks. Connolly looks around at JFK. He's supposed to already be hit. He looks back at the grassy knoll like, oops. And then he looks back forward again. He's still holding his Stetson hat. Then he goes down. Next shot, Kennedy, head shot in the front. How many shots is that? We got a miss. We got a back shot. We got a throat shot. We got a Connolly shot. We got a head shot. We got a 2-shot discrepancy here. Okay? Unless one of them went into orbit, came back all the way around the world and did a number again. Okay, so that's the problem we've got right there on those 2 sets of wounds. One more piece of information. Who in here can just raise your hand if you know about it? The argument that JFK and LBJ had in Fort Worth before they went out to get on the airplane to fly to Dallas concerning who was going to ride in front of Kennedy. Remember that argument? It happened, right? For over an hour, they argued with Lyndon Johnson wanting Senator Ralph Yarborough, who he hated, to ride in front of Kennedy. And we've got Kennedy saying the governor of Texas, Lyndon, is going to ride with the president. He's going to ride with me. Yarborough's going to ride with you. Well, Yarborough and and Johnson hated each other. Yarborough and Connally liked each other. And if you had a chance to be involved in anything to where you could get rid of some guy you hated, why not just put him in front of the number 1 target and have him be the number 2 target? Okay? And tell your field team, whoever they are, no matter where they came from, we don't even care if they speak English, when you see the blue card, get Kennedy and the guy in front of him. Period. That's your 2 target assignments. These guys at 88 yards and less are not going to miss that far and strike a completely different person unless they want to. They're not going to get guys that are that bad of a shot to do this thing. So I think that Connally was not the target, but the guy that was supposed to have been sitting in that seat was a target. Does Connally know about it? I don't know. But let's examine what he did. He looked around after Kennedy's been hit twice. Looked at him, looked at the grassy knoll, looked to the front like a, uh-oh, you know. Then he's hit, and what does he scream?
They're going to kill somebody.
Oh my God, they're killing us all. They are killing us all. Let me tell you, folks, I've been shot. I know a whole bunch of people have been shot. I've seen people get shot. Everybody says the same thing, and that ain't it. I've flown helicopters where the engines quit. I've flown airplanes where I've had an in-flight emergency. We all say the same thing, 2 words. And those ain't it. And then we get this blank look at our face like, well, what do we do now? Okay. Oh my God, they're killing us all. Just a few side notes from an old sniper. There's some things about the mechanics, the trajectories, the physical evidence, the documentation, the weapon, what it's like to sit up there and squeeze that trigger knowing you're going to end a life. Experts that have tried it couldn't do it. And a cop that just smells a rat. Thank you.
Right, Mr. Hoffman, are you ready, sir? I thought it would be a good segue to go into Mr. Hoffman after showing this film, because Mr. Hoffman saw the gunman shooting from behind that picket fence.
You know this place. You've all seen this before. And I was standing, let me show you where. Over here, approximately. On Stennon Freeway. Straight up there on this bridge, and it goes to the left from that picture. And I was standing on the bridge. There were policemen up there as well, and I actually had broken my tooth while I was at work, and my boss had given me the rest of the day off, and I went home to have my tooth fixed. And I was driving, I saw a large crowd of people, and I wondered why, and I remembered that John Kennedy was coming for a visit in Dallas. So, you know, I felt somewhere that I should stop. You know, he was visiting in my town. I was pretty curious about what kind of person JFK was. So I came back down around. I stopped on the Stennon Freeway and parked my car. And there was a lot of traffic going that way. You know, we saw a lot of people there. And I had decided to stand in the best place I possibly could to see this. The road goes up like that, as I just pointed. And I was standing there. I was standing high above, so I could see over everything. And the train tracks went that direction. And I was behind the fence here. Okay? And now please change that. Anyway, this is pretty dark. The next one's more clear. Right, see? Now this one's a very clear picture to show you what it's like. Okay, I have already shown you about this, in this area. behind the fence over here. That's this area right there. And the switch box, the electrical switch box for the train, is this area right here. Now, there was a man that was standing right here. And he was a railroad man. He had worked for the railroad. He ran the electrical box or something of that sort. Okay, now I was standing back this direction, and I was waiting for the parade to come by. You know, it was very easy to see from that area because it was supposed to come straight down that street. I wanted to look over from the bridge as it came under the bridge and watch it go, and I could look down. That means that as the car came by, you know, we had planned clearly, my body could be seen from that direction, and I wanted to get a neat picture. You know, a picture of everyone's dreams to get the president coming under the bridge. And anyway, I didn't know what this man over here was doing that was behind the fence. I didn't know where he'd gone or what he was doing. But there was a pipe that ran along here, a large pipe. Okay. And also, everything was looking kind of strange. I didn't know what he was doing or where he was going. But this man, there were two men, they met over here, and they were talking. And again, he went back over to his post, and I didn't know where he was. Anyway, so I was watching the happenings, and later I saw a picture. I'll show you how it was. Behind that fence, that man was standing there. He had a hat on, and he was standing there like I am right now. And he started to bend over, as I just did, and he picked something up. And I saw, you know, I didn't know where he'd gone. I saw his head bob, and all I could see was his back. I didn't know what he was doing exactly, and so I really didn't pay much attention. And later, I saw him put the gun up over the fence, and he was very focused in on what he was doing, apparently, and I wasn't sure what he was doing. And I was leaned over the bridge, and he was over the fence, and I thought he was smoking, you know, but after the shot, I couldn't hear it, of course, but everyone turned the other direction, and it was very easy to see from what side he had been shot. Now that man threw the gun over the pipe, and he was doing something with the gun. And it was very quick. It was very quick what he was doing. He was hurrying, and he was starting to walk away very quickly. And this railroad box over here, and down the tracks, he came around like this, crossed the tracks, and at that time, everyone was staring, of course. The shot had happened, and this man had scurried off out of the picture. And I couldn't believe it. Anyway, I was watching, and I was waiting for the car to come across the other side of the bridge because it was starting to come underneath the bridge. And I looked under there, and I could see directly over. And I felt my heart beating quite. And really, it was the truth. And his head did fall to the left, and it was just obliterated. The back of his head was just blood was everywhere. It was just really awful. And from what I could see the special services around the car and his wife before, you know, she'd been waving, of course, to the crowd. And Jackie was sitting there, and Kennedy was sitting next to her. And then when it happened, he fell over into her lap. And I saw her come up the back of the car. And he had fallen down into the seat with his head obliterated the way it was. And you could see directly into the car from my vantage point. And I could see in her pink outfit, I could see his head from there. And it was, oh my God. The experience was just heart-wrenching. And then I looked over to where the train was, located near the bridge, under the freeway, and the police were standing up there. They were standing at this area right here, where the bridge went. And at that time, the police were just standing there. They had not moved. And, we were all trying to motion to the police I was trying to motion to the police to go after the man that had run away. And there were other special services. The other car was coming along behind them. And the Secret Service noticed my hands. They noticed, they stopped, they turned their lights out. I thought maybe they were trying to motion to me, but they all got out of there very quickly, of course. And that man had already gone down the tracks by this time, so there was no time to let anyone know. So I ran and got in my car, and I drove down towards that direction, and I kept looking for where the man had gone. And he had disappeared completely. No one ever found him. So I went to the police department at that time. I hurried very quickly to get there, and I went into the police department, and I ran up, and I wrote to them that my uncle was the lieutenant in the police department. They said, "We're sorry, he's not here. He's out on duty. What do you want?" And so, I couldn't get to my uncle. My uncle could talk to me very easily, of course, but so I went back and got in my car, and I went to my father in Grand Prairie. His home was there. It was near Dallas. So I went to my father's home. I went on the tollway, and I hurried. And I'm very lucky I didn't get a ticket at that time because I was speeding quite badly. And I went into my father's home. I went in, and I just screamed, and I was crying at this time. I was just very upset. My father said, "What's wrong with you?" And they came over to me, and I explained, I had a very hard time talking to them. I was very confused at this time. I said, "I saw the man who shot Kennedy." And they were just in shock at this time. They said, "You saw the man that shot the president?" And they hadn't even heard about the shot yet. They hadn't even heard about it. I said, "Yes, he's dead. He's been shot. His head has been destroyed. He's been assassinated." And they said, "Why are you off work?" So I explained, that I had to go to the dentist. And my father said, okay, that he was happy I was all right. But they told me to go home. And, so I went to the dentist at that time and got my tooth fixed. And by that time, everyone had heard that JFK had been shot. And I said, "Please call my uncle at the police station." And they told me to wait again till later. They said, "You better go home. You better go home for a while." And I said, "Please call them now." And everyone kept trying to tell me to calm down and to wait. They had heard about the assassination by this time, and they said that a man had been caught. And I was relieved because, I was deaf, and at that time there weren't interpreters coming to police stations to tell about things like that. So I was very proud that I had been able to express this. So I drove home. I went in the house, and my wife was there, and I explained that JFK had been assassinated, and I had seen it, and my wife was very shocked, of course, as well. And we turned the TV on, and we sat down on the sofa to watch, and I said, "This is what happened," and she said, "Oh, really?" And we were watching the TV, and we were both very nervous, and it showed a picture. And I was pretty confused at this time because the police were watching. In this clip, the police were just watching. And I was pretty confused. I didn't understand. Nothing had been said about the person behind the fence. They had gotten it all wrong. They thought it came from a window, and I was very upset. And so I drove back to my father's house again and went in, and I screamed. I said, "No, it wasn't a 6th-floor window." And I told them about the man behind the fence. And I said, "Please call my uncle at the police station. I saw what was involved." And they said, "Okay, you better calm down. We'll do that later." And they said they would let my uncle know. I said, "Okay." And the next time, it went for many days. The family, we have a very big family home in Dallas. And we had all planned to go down there for a family get-together. My grandmother and grandfather were there. And we were all really excited. And my uncle, I was waiting for my uncle to come. So I was very restless at the time. I was very burdened with this information. It was really a terrible weight on me, and I was ready to get it out, and let my uncle know so I could feel better. And I just couldn't sit still. I just persisted in being antsy. So I was waiting a very long time for my uncle to get there. And my father was trying to calm me down during this time, saying, "It will be okay, it will be okay." And everyone was shocked that I had seen what had happened. So by this time I was sweating. I was just so nervous. Finally, my uncle drove up, and I stood up, and I just started running around waiting for him to get in there. My uncle got out of the car. My dad went over to him, and they kind of chatted for a while. And my uncle, I saw him say "really," and his eyes got enormous at that time. And I went over to them, and they said to calm down again. And I said, "I saw this man running off. He had the gun." And my uncle asked me how it happened, and I explained to him very detailed how it happened, how the assassination occurred from behind the fence, and he was enormously shocked. And my father was in a state of disillusionment. He didn't know what to understand. And my uncle signs well, and my family was there, and they were all just biting their nails and in shock and grief about this. And they told me that we had better not let anybody know my name because I had seen it and I might be in trouble because of that. So we agreed on that. But my burden had lessened at this point. And I kept asking myself, why? Why? Over and over again. Why did this happen? Because my uncle, a lieutenant in the police department, he had experienced many terrible things in his life. He had experienced many of the same type of things. And he told me, yes, I shouldn't think anything of it. He told me to calm down again because I was still bothered by this. We had a little dinner. We sat down with the family, and we went on, and I just still didn't feel that it was right, that they didn't want me to confess this. I was a witness. I saw what happened. So then, from then on out, I just had a terrible time sleeping. I'd wake up in sweats. I'd have bad dreams. I'd toss and turn all night. I just couldn't sleep. Holding this all inside, continuing to keep it inside, I couldn't do that. So, I thought it would eventually lessen, but it was just eating away at me on the inside. So then, in 1967, I decided I didn't care. I felt like I would risk my life for this. So I ignored my family, and I went to a friend, and I said, we need to file something with the FBI. And this man was willing to go call the FBI for me. He said he would be willing to do that and file something with them. So then later on, I went to the FBI. I went into the lobby of the FBI, and I met this woman there, and I gave my name, Ed Hoffman, and they said, "Oh, fine." So she called the man that was supposed to come down to talk to me, the agent from the FBI. And I noticed the lobby had pictures all throughout the lobby, and I was looking at these pictures, and I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk with them. I feel that it's very dangerous, and I don't want the CIA to know. There were pictures of the CIA all over the lobby, and I said I did not want to talk to the CIA. I wanted to talk to the FBI. And she told me not to worry, that we would be talking to the FBI, so I sat down more relieved at that time. And the FBI agent came out to meet me, and I opened something that was in my pocket. Oh, excuse me. The FBI showed me their badge. And I felt more relieved at that time because I was deaf and I really didn't know, I've heard all these stories about the CIA and I really didn't want to be involved with them at that time. So the FBI, I was very accepting of that. So after I had seen his badge, we went into his office and sat down, and we established the preliminaries with my name and everything, and they wanted to know what I saw. So I wrote down and illustrated everything I could on a piece of paper. And, his expressions were changing as I was doing this, and he looked very concerned. And then I looked over, and there was a big mirror all along the wall. I noticed that for the first time. The FBI said, "Don't worry, that's nothing." And the FBI agent decided that I shouldn't say much more. He took my paper that I had written down my story and illustrated what happened and about the fence and the gunman, and he said for me not to say much more. And he was offering me money. And I was very shocked by that. I was extremely shocked by that. And they wanted to know how much I wanted, and I told them no thank you. They wanted to give me money to keep me quiet. And I said, I don't want that money. I don't know what that's for. That means what are you planning to do with this story? It's not necessary to give me money. I'm a witness, and that's all I want. It's my truth. I can't tell you a lie. I mean, here I am. I'm ready to give you the story, and this is the truth. And I have to continue in the truth. I cannot accept money, bribery, to tell a lie. I cannot do that. I'm going to stand sure, and I'm going to continue with my truth. And he said, okay. But he started by saying this. He told me to shut up, and he looked at me very angrily when he said this. And I said, okay, fine. And I left his office. First he was very friendly, and then he got angry because I wouldn't accept his bribe money. And so I left at that time. And as time went on, I went back home, and I thought maybe my father wouldn't know. So I went into the house, and my father had a very strange expression on his face as I walked up to him. And I walked over to my father. He said, "Did you go see the FBI?" And I could not lie. I mean, I just could not lie to my father. My father was a very strict man. I grew up in a very strict home, and that was how I'd been raised. So I confessed. I said, yes, I did. I went to the FBI, and as gravely as he could, he was looking at me, and he said, you know best. They're going to kill you. They're going to kill you someday. I don't know when, I don't know how, but this is going to be dangerous for the family, and your uncle is very worried. We'd really like you to be able to stay with our family. We don't want you to have to do anything strange. I said, I know, but I have wiped my slate clean. I feel much better. I've made myself feel better. Now I can focus on my family. This has made me very happy. It's been a pleasure for me to be able to express that. I said, I cannot continue with sleepless nights. I needed to be able to let it out. He told me to be happy with my love for my family and for my children. And I said, yes, I understand that, but I had to do what I had to do. And so then at that time I went home. And Robert Kennedy had died also by this time, and I didn't have any involvement in that. But I was very nervous. I wrote to Ted Kennedy. I wrote him a letter. And I waited for a very long time and got no response. And finally I got a letter back that I read. And I said, think of your brothers. Ted Kennedy hadn't been paying attention at that time. For their family, he had not been paying attention. And I didn't know what he was planning, but he didn't give me any kind of response back in the letter he sent to me. And later on, my father had died, and In 1977, I went back to the FBI. And I was very serious about doing something about this. I figured all this time had wasted, and I needed to let them know again in 77 what had happened. So I drove over there. I knew what to do because I had had experience by this time. And the FBI was very friendly and nice and sweet. And they came out to meet me, and, you know, they took my picture, and we went on. And they took a whole lot of pictures at this time. And before, on a billboard, it was very low, and it was easy to see behind the fence. You know, now they had built a billboard, and there were trees there, and it had all grown up in front of that. And really, you couldn't see anything at that day. He said, "We can't see anything. You know, I'm sorry." I said, "I have pictures of the old way." And the billboard was not there. The fence was lower. I said, "I have enough. You don't have to worry. And I can prove that you can see it from there, from the bridge." And, you know, I had taken a lot of pictures. The FBI also took a lot of pictures. And we went back to the FBI, and I showed them my pictures, and the FBI said they could not, the rules restricted them giving any pictures to me. Hoover at this time the FBI had said to me that they were sorry that they couldn't give any of their pictures to me because it had been put in the file and sealed and put away also with Hoover for reasons of confidentiality. And they had put that in a file, and it was sealed, and I could not get it. And the FBI said they understood my concern, and they thanked me for coming. And I really thought they were much nicer this time, at least. And I left, and I heard nothing from them for a very long time until a man from a college contacted me. And a woman stood up someplace and identified me as a witness, as Ed Hoffman. And I said, yes, I do live here. And I was very excited about this opportunity from the college to be able to be involved and let them know my story first. And after that, it started spreading. You know, I let them know. That the story up to now had not been believed, and I was a witness, and I had seen, and, you know, they could believe what they wanted to. The government and the political side of it, they could believe that. But I had been very patient and understanding about this, and Posner I had sent out his story the year before, and I was very upset. I said I had never talked with that man. I had never even met him. And I had given my story to the FBI, and all these groups had lied for his sake. And I couldn't understand why that had happened. And I think it must have been money and business involved. And the CIA had been involved, I'm sure. And I said that my truth was really what happened, and I would not lie about it. And, you know, they could decide for themselves, and they could look at me however they wanted to. But I loved the truth, and I wanted them to know what had happened for the American public's sake. What will you do? But thank you all. Thank you very much.